Alrighty, so I'm back on my break again, about to film another video for the channel. I actually tried to film this video last week and just ended up going on a ramble, and so hopefully I'm a little bit more organized today. I actually don't have a lot of time to talk about this, so hopefully, we'll be able to wrap this up pretty quickly. But the goal of the message I'm trying to get across to you today is that you are obligated to exercise your free will. Okay. And what do I mean by that? Well, I guess, to start, there's a quote that I'm going to butcher, but hopefully I can give you guys basically the same effect that it gave me. But the quote basically goes to say, the second you become an adult and you start making your own decisions, you are obligated to exercise free will because you become responsible for the outcomes that you experience. Okay. And now I say that, obviously the next thing anybody's going to say is like, well, actually, my life, all these things as to why you're not in control of XYZ circumstances, we've already talked about on this channel about you can only control the things that you are in control of, and everything else, the only thing you can control is how you respond. So, keep that same energy. But what I'm trying to say is that you have an obligation, especially if you live in the United States, to exercise your free will. Once you become an adult, once you're in charge of yourself, the choices that you make, while they may be influenced by other things and by other people, they are ultimately yours to make. You could wake up tomorrow and do something completely radical compared to what you've been doing for the past 5 years, and you have the ability to do that. Now, you may choose not to do that because it doesn't make any sense, doesn't make any logical sense. Like, for example, if you don't like your job, you literally can send an email right now that says, I quit, I'm done, as of effective immediately right now. Now, we have a million other discussions as to whether or not that's the right move for you, whether it be because you need income to pay your bills, you actually like your job maybe, or there's opportunities at your job that you would like, that if you stick it out, you could eventually have. Maybe you have people that depend on you that require you not to quit your job even if you hate it. Maybe you have a certain skill set that's only applied in this very specific way, and it would be very hard for you to find a replacement job in a short time period or something like that, right? There are obviously all these worldly complications that come in to mess everything up and make it so that you have all these things factoring in the decisions that you make. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you are literally in charge of the decisions that you make, and therefore the outcomes that you receive as a direct result. Now, you may be unable to predict that when you make X decision that Y outcome will happen, but there are many, many things in life where you can draw that through line between, if I do this, then this will happen. Or if I do this, then I will be better off in this area or worse off in this area, or what have you. Okay? And so why are you obligated to exercise your free will when you're making these decisions? Why are you obligated to optimize for what you want to do, what other people versus what other people want you to do? And that's because, similar to like we were talking in the complexity reduction talk, you will reap what you sow. So if you want to be friends with a bunch of people that don't align with how you would act naturally, what would make you happy, and you think that it would make you happy to act like this other person, and that will get you these friends and that will make you happy, like that might, maybe, possibly, in a very rare scenario, be the case. But for 99.999% of people, you're better off just being yourself. And yes, those people may not like you, but other people will like you, right? And so you are essentially in control of your destiny when it comes down to certain things like this. And if you try to pawn off that responsibility onto other people in your life, you will just end up disappointed in where you ended up. Because unfortunately, no matter how much your parents, your best friends, your siblings, other nondescript family members, other people in your life, your peers, your manager at work, whatever, no matter how much influence these people have on your life or how much advice they give you, they don't understand you as well as you do. And they never will, right? They are a broken machine. We're all humans. We're all subject to putting our own perception onto what's happening, okay? And so while there may be objective truth, I personally believe in it, not everybody has advice that's going to help you or lead you in the right direction. An example of this for me personally is that I, growing up, was very much into electronics and still am. I try to learn how to fix electronics in my free time. I have set up a server in my house to manage all my media. I have set up security system in my house that's run through a bunch of enterprise gear. And sometime in the future, I'll have server racks like in my garage. Okay? I'm really into that stuff. So some people may say, okay, well then why didn't you become some IT professional that manages that stuff full time? And I even had someone in my life with that background who I actually really appreciate whenever I get to talk to them about this stuff. But I had somebody like that in my life who was telling my parents like, hey, he seems to be very interested in this. Like, you should maybe go down this path, things like that. But even at like 14, 15 years old, around the time I had started building my first computer and kind of doing all that kind of stuff, I knew that while I was really interested in this stuff, I don't want to do that for work. I, at that time, was like, either I'm going to be some sort of science-based thing or I'm going to be a business guy. And I ended up going the business route. And personally, I still love the fact that I went the business route. And my specific version of business that I do is all around supply chain, but my future path is around analyzing and understanding systems and how they work, which in and of itself is actually the same niche that some of that IT stuff plays in, but my own way, right? And I don't feel like I made the wrong choice. Now, could I be happier on a day-to-day basis when I encounter some things that are very tough for me to solve that would otherwise not be so if it was something I'm already researching in my free time? Obviously. But this is the path that I've chosen, and I have to make it my own way, right? And when I do that, right, when I do things my own way, I might take people's advice into consideration. So I may know that I am wired in such a way that I look at things like an engineer, even if I'm not exactly personality-wise like one. So I didn't avoid that when I was looking into occupations or industries to get into for business. Supply chain and ops is a very, for lack of a better term, standardization and statistics focused field. Very much so works with engineers, even though the engineers are more on like an R&D and coming up with stuff kind of side, or a validation and testing stuff kind of side. But ultimately, I feel like I made the right choice despite everybody in my life giving me advice to do the opposite, right? And you have to, because you are lucky enough to be born into a situation, because not everybody in this world is. If you are lucky enough to be born into a situation where you have control to this level over your outcomes, you're obligated to exercise it. And I would even say that, the people that are born into a situation where they have much less control over their personal freedoms, they value this even more, right? Because they don't take it for granted. If you were born into some serfdom situation, you would not take it for granted, the freedom that you have around the little edge cases where you actually do get to make decisions in life, right? So I don't need to go like deep into that, but just to kind of wrap this up, I don't know if you guys have ever seen or heard of the poem Invictus. Essentially it ends on the quote that, I am the captain of my own soul. I am the one in control of my destiny. Okay? And I believe that to my core. And so that gives me the confidence to go out and exercise my freedom despite the advice that people give me, or in support of the advice that people give me, or in direct contradiction with the way that society thinks I should act, or in direct relation to the way that society thinks I should act. I am ultimately making the decisions for myself. So when I experience success, I am able to look at that like, wow, we actually made a good decision. Or similarly, when I make a bad decision, I can't blame that on anybody except myself. When I fail, it's my fault. Always. And I know I'm getting intense, but that is such an important aspect that I have learned in life, because you can't live and be happy based on somebody else's perception of yourself. It's impossible, because they don't know you the way you know you. They simply don't. And they may mean well, and they may know you better. They may be the second best person to know you, compared to yourself. But you have to make the decisions. You have to make the mistakes. You can't have any out to blame anybody else for these things, because otherwise it will just stifle your growth. Because you need to understand that when you fail, that it's your fault, and look at that situation. And a term I love that I got from Gravemind, which is obviously from something else, is called soul surgery. You have to sit there and do the autopsy to understand how you ended at that point, and change the things in your life that are putting you in a negative direction for things that are putting you in a positive. And it's hard. It's really tough. And by the way, the goal is not to be hyper self-critical, even though it may seem that way. The goal is to grow, to become better. And when you start making these decisions for yourself, other people will notice. And, long story short, you will live a better life, a life that's more aligned to what makes you happy, to what makes you engaged as a result. Okay? So, we're going to wrap all this up into a nice bow to hopefully end this video quickly. My goal is that all you guys understand that in this life, you have to be in the driver's seat. You are obligated to exercise your free will, especially if you're born into a country like the United States, where you're lucky enough to basically have as much personal freedoms as you could possibly have in the terrible world that we live in, right? So you're obligated to make those decisions for yourself, because nobody else can make them for you. They really can't. And you should take people's advice into account. You should evaluate it, because other people do have wisdom to share with you. But ultimately, you have to do it your way. Now, some of you may think that that's just an opinion of mine. I think that it's fundamental to life. But that's my piece. That's what I have to say to you guys today. So that's the end of the video. Comment down below if you agree, disagree, whatever. I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say on this one, because admittedly, I was born this way. I have to do things my own way. I get annoyed when people try to tell me to do things their way. And that's probably a bad character trait of mine, because I should just listen to people. But I think it has helped me in life. And so I would be interested to hear what you guys say in the comments down below. So with that being said, that's the end of the video, and expect maybe a a movie or anime related video next up, because I don't want to go too deep into the philosophical stuff too fast, because I myself am not that enlightened yet. So anyways, that's the end of the video. I'll catch you guys on the next one.